Hey, Riding Side Saddle, it's Lisa.
And Tammy.
We're back in season 7. Episode 3 is today.
It is. Shoo.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Scott was just talking to me about, he asked me this morning, how many episodes have you published so far? So then I had to go back and start looking.
Yeah.
And between snacks and episodes in the year and a half that we've been doing this.
Yeah.
Because our first episode aired September 18th, 17th, 2022.
Yeah.
We have done 95 episodes and
That
snacks
is a lot.
since then. Yeah. So if you remove the snacks, which we do between every season to give us a little bit of a break.
And the ones we did before we actually had our first episode.
Correct. We probably have like 75 episodes.
Ooh, that's a lot.
That is an accomplishment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yes.
So here we are in
Season
7. Today we decided that we were going to do our planning session at a coffee shop.
Yep.
Not our traditional area.
No.
Tammy's on her way up north. I still have some flexibility in my schedule, so we just came someplace different than we usually do.
Yep.
And we weren't sure what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Until we...
I was prepared to talk about Canadian thistles.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, we could still talk about
That's terrible.
But we don't have to, because when we were at the coffee shop...
I'm stunned now. I don't want to talk about Canadian thistles.
No, we don't have to do that.
What you focus on, you bring forth.
Well, they're already there. And I didn't focus on them. They're already there.
So at the coffee shop,
Yeah.
there was a mirror on the wall, and on the mirror was a question written in magic marker. It had multiple responses written out on Post-it notes and tacked to the mirror. And the question on the mirror kind of created our topic for today.
Sure.
Because it's an interesting question, and I think it deserves some conversation.
Yeah, it was definitely food for thought. Mm-hmm. Both of us had a similar reaction to the question, though.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, why do good things happen to bad people? And good is underlined and bad is underlined. And I went up initially and just kind of looked at some of the responses to that. There's a handful. There's probably close to 10.
Sure.
Different responses. They have little Post-it notes underneath, so you can write your response and tack it to the mirror. And then I just had to sit down and let it resonate for a little while, because I just really wasn't sure how I felt about it. Mm-hmm.
I did not go up and read the responses right away after we finished lunch. Then I did go up and read them. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Absolutely.
Right? I didn't like the question.
Right.
I immediately, after I read it, was like, I said, I don't like that question.
Well, and so there were 2 young gentlemen on staff today.
Yep.
Very delightful, very wonderful place. Great staff, great food.
Tea was good.
Yeah. And he noticed that we were pondering the question on the mirror. And
he was interested in what we thought about it.
yes. I don't know that he was
not
fully
prepared.
expecting the response that he got,
He was not prepared.
because I mean, Tammy speaks far more eloquently than I do, and in the moment she was able to communicate better than me. I just kind of sat back and listened a little bit.
I know you were really silent. I thought I had gone a little too far.
No, you didn't. I just the question doesn't sit well in my stomach, and I think the underlined words in the question, the good versus the bad,
Right.
That's what does not sit well with me.
No.
I have learned, I think, specifically around riding side saddle, that perspective is everything.
Absolutely.
And what I view today, as an opinion that I might have, if somebody adds perspective on that topic for me, my opinion can change very quickly tomorrow with new information, right? And that's one of the core fundamental things that we have brought forward in writing Side Saddle. And I truly, like, that is a value for me. It's part of my value system to be open-minded for new information.
Right.
So when a question is posed, why do good things happen to bad people? It does not sit well in my value system that is even a question that I would be able to connect with.
Right. Right. I don't think that is a question I can actually answer.
Yeah.
And it felt a little bit offensive to me. First of all, I don't know how you define good, and I don't know how you define bad, but I do know that definition is different for every single human.
Yes.
So that right off the bat set me off.
Right. Right.
I really didn't like that. I also don't like that it puts me in a place where I feel like I am judging other people.
Or you should even be allowed to judge other people in that manner.
It's putting me in that place.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Where I don't think that is my place to be. It also, when it's hard for me when I'm in that place where I am being judgy, because I'm human and sometimes I go there. Even though I try not to, sometimes I still do.
Right.
It makes me feel very superior.
Correct.
And when I get to that place, I know I'm in trouble.
Right. It's not a healthy place
That is
to
not
be.
a healthy place to be.
Right. Right.
So that whole question felt like a giant setup to me. I did not like it at all.
Well, and I while I was contemplating it during lunch, I thought to myself, I consider myself to be a good person.
Sure.
Have I fucked up? For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely have fucked up many, 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 many times. It does not make me a bad person.
Right.
Now, based on your own value system, right? Anybody else's value system, they might perceive me as quote unquote a bad person.
Right.
And that, I think it's exactly what you're trying to say. That depends on the person, right? If somebody finds cursing to be extraordinarily offensive and decides whether or not I'm a good or a bad person based on
that,
whether or not I curse,
you're in big trouble.
Well, then, guess what? I'm a fucking bad person.
You bad. Real bad.
If somebody defines someone as bad if they have had a child out of wedlock.
Right. Well, I'm bad.
I'm bad.
And that makes me bad
you
too.
You bad. So
or divorce. Like there,
yes.
I mean, so many societal faux pas, I guess, judgments,
Yes.
right? Yeah, for sure. It is, again, those are not things for me to judge.
Correct.
And some of those things I cannot judge because I've done them myself. So.
Right. And honestly, I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
If somebody thinks that interrupting is a determining factor between good and bad, I am also bad.
I do it all the time, and I don't intend to. It just comes right out.
I think that we finish each other's thoughts sometimes, which is what's happening. But for those things in my life that somebody might judge me as bad or made a mistake or whatever, I don't even look at them as mistakes. It isn't like my divorce was a necessary part of my evolution. The daughter that I have when I was not married is the greatest gift, like one of two of the greatest gifts that I have in my life.
Right.
And I would not ever like even judge myself to say that was a really bad thing. That was really bad because
You
I
are
don't
really
know
bad.
what I would do
Right.
without having had that experience.
Right.
I am so incredibly grateful for it. But on the outside looking in, somebody might perceive that differently if they don't know, right?
Yes. I can remember when my oldest daughter was a baby, and Parents Magazine, I don't know if they still are around or not because I haven't subscribed to such things in a very long time. But I had a subscription to Parents Magazine.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it was talking about as it related to toddlers in particular was when you're correcting them, and this stood out to me because my experience was the opposite of what this advice was.
Yeah.
It was, you don't tell your child you're bad.
Right.
You're
naughty. Right.
Right. You're naughty. You're bad. That's bad.
Right.
That's naughty.
Right.
It's such one word is such a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I think that question, how do you even define someone as bad? And I'm not talking about the extremes, right? I know that there are things that
of course
all of society would call bad.
Right.
Right? Or call someone bad if they did certain things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just everyday, regular, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same sort of thing. Like sometimes people make bad choices.
Right.
Sometimes people do what we would say is a bad thing.
Right.
I don't know that makes
a person
bad.
Correct. I entirely agree with that.
It also, that question also made me feel like, so good things can happen to bad people. Almost like it's not fair because they didn't earn the good things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, who's to say? First, and I've got a problem with that word earn also. Like, what you can...
You don't deserve.
Right. So what makes you deserve good things?
Right. Right. And again, I would never put myself in a situation to make that judgment.
Right.
We said on our last episode, and I would really like to expound on this sometime in the future, but this one link connects very closely. In our last episode with Marcy, we were chatting about people pleasing and the different fight, flight, the kinds of reactions, right? At the end of that conversation, we started talking about the fact that from the outside looking in, you don't have line of sight to a full person. Every person has a story.
Yep.
And most of the time, that story is not like, it's not a billboard flashing across their forehead.
No.
So to make a judgment about a person based on one sliver, one fraction of a piece of information that you know about them, that goes against every part of me. And that's what this is connecting to, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, how do you know who's bad? You know one piece, and you're judging a whole person on that one piece. Yeah. You don't know the story as to how that person got there.
Right.
So,
and I don't know. I myself have sometimes been in a place where I have said or done something that upon reflection, I have regretted saying or doing something. And I appreciate the fact that sometimes I have to apologize. Sometimes I have to give myself a little grace. And I very much appreciate it when someone shows me grace when I do apologize. I wasn't my best self in that moment.
Right.
And I'm really sorry. What I meant to say was this.
Exactly.
So in that moment where I wasn't my best self, does that mean I don't deserve good things? I don't think it does.
Right.
That whole question really,
it struck a real big chord.
It's really icky.
In both of us.
Yeah.
Yes. Some of the responses were, they resonated a little bit deeper, right? Like, okay, I didn't like the question, but some of the responses.
And these are the responses that were on the sticky notes that were stuck to the mirror?
That's right. So patrons of this location added their perspective and answer to that question.
Because they were they were asking for that, right? That was the whole their purpose of having that question on the mirror.
Correct.
They had the stick and a pen there, so you could do that.
Right.
Yeah. We did not.
No, we did not. We chose not to. But some of them, I think kind of fall back in line with some of my value systems. So one person responded to provide an opportunity for growth and gratitude. Well, that's that's fair, right? But
Don't
it doesn't
we all have?
but it doesn't necessarily, again, go back to you know, judging somebody as good or bad, right?
Right.
This is an opportunity to be able to say, I learned something here, right? Like, I can reflect on it. Like, it is, that response almost speaks to, there really isn't a good or a bad. There is an opportunity for growth, period.
Right.
For everyone.
Right.
Right.
In most every situation.
Agree.
Right. Even if it is simply a moment to be grateful, right?
Correct. Another one said something very similar, makes people stronger and more grateful for the good that they have. I mean, that's fair, right? Like, it kind of speaks to the gratefulness component. Another one said, it rains on the good and on the evil. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't love that we are defining people that way. And again, I'm not talking about people in the extremes. I'm just talking about your everyday run-of-the-mill people. I don't like it.
It's all perspective. It really, like, outside of, like you said, outside of the very extreme situations, honestly, it is all perspective, and it is not healthy for me to start going down that slippery slope of thinking that I should be able to judge people.
Who deserves
what?
Good things or not.
Correct.
That is not my place. That question really.
Well, I think that it kind
yucky.
of goes towards a lot of things that we've talked about in writing Side Saddle. First and foremost, comparison
is the thief of joy.
Yes. Right. So if you're judging a person to be able to qualify whether or not they are good or bad, well, then you're probably comparing them as a justification as to why you deem, what's good and what's bad. And comparison sends ripples of issues down.
It for sure does. For sure. Again, I don't know anybody who classifies themselves as a bad person.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I don't think I'm a bad person, but I know I've done some bad things.
Sure.
I define them as bad. I don't know if anybody else would, but I would define them as bad.
Or simply just
saying... But I still think I'm a good person.
Right. Simply just saying, I wasn't my best, or, I'd like a redo on that. Now that I'm able to reflect on it, maybe I reacted poorly.
Right.
And if I could change how I did or what I did, I would. Right.
But
again, not necessarily bad. You were talking a little bit earlier as we were chatting about this, about the Airbnb.
Oh, yeah, that was a great example. So I am on some Facebook groups for Airbnb stuff. And this was someone who is a host. Like, they have their own Airbnb.
They have a property.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they had stayed at some other property.
Okay.
And they were putting a question to the whole group, wanting to know how to give a fair review of this place where they had stayed, because they felt like the yard was atrocious. And I mean atrocious. That is a quote.
Yeah, a direct quote from the post.
Absolutely,
that she put.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so before I looked at the pictures that were also posted, I had a picture of atrocious in my mind, right? Garbage laying around, junk everywhere, broken bottles, danger, right?
Completely unkept.
For sure. Broken furniture.
Right.
The pictures that I saw had none of that.
Uh-huh.
They had dandelions that had gone to seed. That was atrocious in this person's definition. I would never define a dandelion that's gone to seed as something atrocious.
Right.
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 That wouldn't even give me a reason to look at this place and think, I can't believe I paid to stay here.
So let me just ask questions for clarity. Not that I disagree with you, but for clarity.
do.
Was in the pictures that you saw, was it short grass dandelions
Correct.
high, or grass unmowed and dandelion field
No.
within the unmowed grass?
No, the grass was mowed.
Mm-hmm.
The dandelions were tall and had gone to seed, which anybody who has ever taken care of a yard knows that can happen in less
Overnight.
than 24 hours.
Right. I was literally just going to say
Right.
that
Right.
in a blink of an eye, you can have
For
dandelions
sure.
going
I just
to
cut
seed.
the grass yesterday and now look at.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
How did those suckers not get cut off
Uh-huh.
before they turn to seed? I don't know how they do it, but they
Right.
do.
Yeah.
There was nothing about that yard that looked atrocious to me.
Mm-hmm.
This person's definition of atrocious was in a picture. So back to the good and bad.
Yeah.
Something I thought, I would have said that's a good place to stay.
Right.
In her mind,
Atrocious.
it was atrocious.
Yeah.
And she was really put off by this.
In addition to
I don't know
Maybe
if it was
having-
she or he. I don't know. I shouldn't say she.
Understood. In addition to having a spectrum, like of what does atrocious mean to you or to this other person, and those can be very different things.
For sure.
Right. In addition to that, the whole, somebody's value system might need to be added into that as well, in order to keep. I don't know where physically she was located.
I don't either.
But, in the United States, in order to keep dandelions out of your yard so that they do not turn to seed, you have to use a lot of chemicals to be able to manage that.
Right.
Well, depending as to who you ask, the use of chemicals in your yard might be atrocious.
Right.
Right. So not only the spectrum of, that really wasn't that bad. I wouldn't certainly call it atrocious. It's kind of a normal thing, to I cannot believe that you're using chemicals on a very well-maintained property, but I don't like the fact that there are no weeds here, because
Right.
that
That
means you're
means you're
doing
using
something
chemicals.
different. Right. That
Right.
I don't agree with.
Right.
So it is a very slippery slope.
Mm-hmm. It is. That's just dandelions.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Now you bring into some other societal pressure and judgments, and like you brought up before, having a child out of wedlock.
Right.
There was a time where that was just about the worst thing you could do.
Sure
Right?
was. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely there was.
I don't know. Is it though?
Well, no.
Right?
Not in my
to
mind.
me. Right. 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 I'm not at all suggesting that people just go around, willy-nilly having children. I think that is something you should maybe think about before you're, having 20 kids. But I don't think that the fact that you're not married when a child comes along means you're a bad person.
Agree.
Babies come when they come.
That's right.
If they weren't meant to be here, they wouldn't be.
That's 1,000 million times correct. And frankly, I'm grateful.
Right.
Honestly, my
Right.
own personal experience, I could not be more grateful that baby came when
she
she
did.
decided that it was time.
Right. You were meant to be her mom, and here she is.
Right.
Right.
Pushing her way through.
Like it or not, here she is. Just kidding.
Here I
Kidding,
am.
Liz. Of course, it's not like it or not. But
In fact, I remember, this is a little bit of a side story. When Liz was probably, 10, right, like right around that preteen time frame, I remember distinctly I was driving her someplace, and she knew that she was like, I had her on my own. It wasn't a
that you weren't
situation
married.
where I was
Yeah.
married to her dad and things like that. And that was no
not a
secret.
secret.
Right. It is.
Right.
It is what it is. And we were talking at that time about her, being born and all of those things. And I said to her, in the context of that conversation, that she was a surprise.
mm-hmm.
And It was a little bit of a weird conversation because it was one of the first conversations that we had had to that level of detail, right? Like she knew that her dad and I were not together. She knew that it was, our family was unique in that manner. But we didn't talk about, the fact that she was a surprise.
Yeah.
And I chose my words very, very deliberately that day. Because sometimes people will say, when a pregnancy is unexpected, it's a mistake. Well, that is the furthest thing from true for me in how I feel about her. So I knew that when that day came, I was going to use the word surprise. Mm-hmm. It was unexpected, but it was
it wasn't a mistake either.
Right. So I said it. She looks at me and she gets the most joyful look on her face. Her eyes get really wide. She puts her hand up to her chest and she's like, Mom, I was a surprise. Like a so birthday sweet. Surprise, like a gift you were not expecting.
That is a surprise.
Yes. And I said, absolutely you were. Mm-hmm. You were absolutely surprised. And she sat with that and she was like that. Like it made her feel so much better.
Right.
That it was a happy.
Right.
It was something happy.
So my parents aren't together.
Yes.
But I was a surprise.
And I said, you sure were.
And she still is.
So that is a little aside, but very, very along the lines of, I don't think I was a bad person for that.
No. Right. And babies are not mistakes.
No, not ever.
No. Mm-mm. No. So that question really,
it's just something to really think about.
Well, and so the young man that was working, he did say that.
He stepped in it a little.
Well, yeah,
he wasn't expecting the response.
It was a little feisty. It was a little bit spicy. We had just had a conversation that was spicy, and then he asked,
this young
what do you
man,
think about this question?
Right.
Oh, you don't want to know. Don't ask. Rule number 1, don't ask a question you don't already know the answer to. And you just stepped in it, mister. I'll tell you. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it.
He thought he might know
he
the
thought he
direction,
did. Yeah.
But it's not. They probably both looked at each other with their eyes wide as saucers when we left. Tammy said, don't ask a crabby middle-aged woman her opinion if you don't want to know it.
Right. I didn't say that to them. I said that to you quietly in the hallway.
I'm like, let's go.
That question, I felt like, and to his credit, he did say, I feel like that
it's
is
loaded.
A little bit of a trap, he
yes.
said.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very much a trap.
Yes.
And so I'm glad it wasn't his question. But he did say, these actually are the good questions because they really make you think. Mm-hmm. And he's not wrong about that.
That's true.
But I already knew what I thought.
Right.
That didn't make me think a whole lot harder. It made my stomach yuck.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, perhaps he will. Well, I mean, teasingly, perhaps he's not going to ask that question again.
But don't ask if you better look at them carefully to see if they're spicy or not.
Right. Well, you look super sweet and cute, so that spice is underneath somewhere. He probably felt pretty good asking the question.
Is that what you're saying?
You're a surprise.
Uh-huh. It was a mistake when he asked me that question.
Surprise booby trap. I think, though, just even your response, right? And we're teasing about it, but I think that responding to him in a very thoughtful, it was a very thoughtful response, in a very thoughtful way that might be different than how most people react to that question, might make him think about different perspective too.
Maybe.
So I think all is fair. It's, you weren't belligerent or anything. You were just I
didn't tell him off.
Right. You were just very clear that
I don't like the question.
Yeah, that question is very subjective.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell him it was inappropriate, but
no, it's just as subjective.
right.
Right.
And I don't know, again, who's to say it's appropriate or not appropriate? I don't know. I didn't like the question.
It all
and that's my
depends on
opinion.
your value system.
Clearly, other people who answered the question
had no
didn't
issues.
have a problem with it.
Right. And that's all fine too.
Of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it is. I chose not to write my response because I don't think that's what they were going for.
Yes.
I really don't think they were
right.
looking for spicy.
Maybe we should walk back in there and quick write. Don't ask crabby middle-aged ladies questions if you don't want to know the answer.
I don't think we should do that either. I think we should just leave and never come back.
Fine. We'll do it your way.
Well, what's interesting is that we ended up here today. This was not our first choice.
No.
We ended up at this place because the place we had chosen was closed. So then here we are. And I mean, it worked out great because we had something to talk about for a whole half hour. We had other things we could talk about, like Canadian thistles, but this was a better topic.
I'm so glad we talked about this. I don't want to talk about that. Now that's bad.
That is bad. That is bad.
So clearly it was supposed to be a topic today.
Yeah.
We were guided here.
For sure.
It wasn't our intention.
No.
It came up a little bit haphazardly as a surprise.
A surprise.
So we'll take it.
That was a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
So, one of the other things that we both really, I think we hold very dear is the ability to observe, right? Not dashing through life so quickly that you miss all of this stuff, right?
Yes.
I think this was one of those things. Could easily have read it and dismissed it and, that's a dumb question and never thought about it again.
Right.
I don't know. It was something we talked about for half an hour today.
Right.
Right?
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It was something that was supposed to be brought to the surface.
For sure. But giving yourself that space to allow things like that to not just like bounce off of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Reflection.
Yes, right.
How do I feel about that?
Right.
Right. And why do I feel that way?
Right.
Yeah. Observation and reflection.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah, me too. That's probably enough for one day, huh?
I agree.
Yeah. Before I get spicy again. All right, then.
Well,
so we'll wrap it up. Mind Garden Media. Todd, God dang it all.
He saved us.
He did.
Yeah.
So I totally dropped the ball. We have a process for getting this stuff out, right? And I'm human and human things happen. And I failed to complete the process. So Todd didn't even know there was an episode waiting. And when we told him that, oh, by the way, there is an episode in the folder, and now I've completed the process. We have a spreadsheet that we fill out. I filled it out, but sorry, it's my fault. He immediately jumped on it and just made it happen.
Yeah, he did.
Within like an hour, it was done. And I still don't know how he did that, but it certainly was not my intent that he go that extra mile. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Just letting him know, yeah, we screwed up. We didn't forget. We're not falling off the wagon. It was just a mistake.
Right.
And he worked really hard to fix my mistake so that it didn't have to affect our schedule.
Well, and he has done this before.
I know.
Behind the scenes, because I too am human, just like you are.
For sure.
And, there's been a couple of times where there's things that have gone wrong or things that got behind schedule or from our perspective.
Life just gets in the way.
And absolutely every time. Like we were completely anticipating just saying,
we'll
hold up,
it this
episode
week.
next week,
Yep.
no worries, because this is the way life is. And
Right.
sometimes this kind of stuff happens,
Right.
right? Don't
No,
it doesn't
no
make
big
you
deal.
a bad person, Tammy.
Thanks for that. I did a bad thing, okay? It wasn't
even
not
a bad thing.
person.
These
no,
are
I was
these
just
are life
human,
things,
and I completely just spaced it.
Right.
But my point
the point is
that Todd
yes.
is wonderful. And if
1,000%.
you are at all considering a podcast, please do reach out to them. Mind Garden Media on Facebook. That's where you'll find them. really, I can't say enough. Even when you do, silly human things,
Yes.
they work really hard to just bail you out and save you from yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is not easy to do.
No, it isn't. Even if you're not a bad person.
What would Todd do?
Right. So anyway.
Thank you as well to our listeners. As we were talking up front, like we are 95 recordings
That is
in
crazy.
Before this episode. So, gosh, if you weren't here listening and connecting with us on a regular basis, that wouldn't be. So we are very grateful for you.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for following along and sharing and listening and making suggestions and comments and
Yeah. Thank you.
keeping us
On our
in the
toes.
saddle.
Right.
Yeah. All right, then. Till next time.
That's it.
All right.
Bye.
Toodaloo.